Hey guys, what's up? It's Marathon Man here. Today we're going to do a commentary on my new Ratchet and Clank All Gold Bolts PB that I got maybe about 2 weeks ago or so now. This is a 5635 and it is currently, it was 12th place at the time, it is now 13th. Alright, let's give it a watch. So I'm going to try and do what I did with my NG Plus one, where I kind of covered some things that maybe if you've never seen this category before might not be so obvious. So this first planet, there's not really a whole lot to it. Lots of side flips and bolt collecting, but the big thing with Ratchet 1 and any percent categories is bolt management, especially early on. There's quite a few things that we have to buy throughout this run, and so the less out of our way we have to go to get bolts, the better. So, pretty good Velden 1, time-wise. I don't have the best bolts, but I also have pretty good bombs. I got an extra bomb drop with some crates that I broke. And I normally say as long as 2 of those 3 things are good, time, bomb drop, or bomb count rather, and bolt count, as long as 2 of those things are good, I'm usually pretty happy. I don't mind taking slower Velden ones if I have really good bolts and really good bombs. And in this case, I don't mind keeping this because I have really good bombs and it's pretty fast. 51 is pretty good. But the second planet's also pretty standard. You saw I kind of jumped at a rock wall while I was in the river, and I ledge grabbed and brought myself up. That just skips having to go around. It's a pretty common thing with the Ratchet and Clank games that a lot of Insomniac made a lot of their maps in more of a circle, so there's no backtracking needed. This is Kerwan. It's a pretty lengthy planet. It's one of the longest in the whole run. And that was really sloppy on my part. Normally, I just side flipped right into a wall. So this helicopter here drops a lot of bolts. I'm going to try and get over 1,000. And I got 1,041, so really good. Sometimes if you're a bit shy, you have to kill some enemies on the bridge here. But really good bolts here. Like I said, this planet's pretty long and it's pretty open. We have a lot to do here, so we just bought the helipack. And as you see, we can kind of long jump with it, and you'll see these here coming up. These are mid-air long jumps. So basically, it is a long jump turned into a side flip turned back into a long jump. And so you get the speed of the initial long jump, the throw of the side flip, and then the distance of the second long jump. And it's really, really good for covering gaps. Right there, I actually missed a midair. There's pretty tight timing on those, but thankfully, this first gold bolt's not too bad. You just have to do some wall bounces, but right here, I'm going to do a skip called train skip. So I'm going to land in a certain spot. That one guard is actually going to shoot me and break my position lock, and then I can move during this cutscene. It's a little hard to move, but after doing it so many times and just understanding where you are and how the train moves and the cycle that it's on, it's not too bad. And ideally, when I land on the last cart, the second cutscene plays immediately. So we're going to grab the infobot here. And the infobots are what lead us to the next planet. And then we have 1 gold bolt underneath here. I'm going to try and grab some extra bolts and some extra bombs from that stack there. And you see a bunch of them snap to me while I grab the gold bolt. So, pretty big trick coming up here. So I'm going to reload the planet. And when we load back in, I'm going to kill one of the dogs and not collect any of its bolts. And then head to a very specific area. Unfortunately, I couldn't save this here. If you have really good spacing on your mid-airs, you can cut that gap there. But that didn't happen, unfortunately. So I killed the dog, don't collect any of its bolts, and then we're going to head over to a very specific area with a bunch of crates. And conveniently, there's also, that's where the last gold bolt on this planet is. Unfortunately, bad positioning there on my part, and I had to go the slow way. So we're going to hit the TNT crate, it's going to blow that stack up, and then we are going to stand in a pretty precise spot and break these crates in a certain order. And as you see, a ton of bolts snap to me. And this is extremely important because in a few planets, there is a very steep 4,000 bolt stipulation. And this trick, which is called jankpot, is found by a runner named Janky. Is extremely effective in helping meet that requirement in a speedy way that doesn't lose us a bunch of time. Unfortunately here, didn't quite make that gap, and now I'm on a really, really slow cycle, so... but I have pretty good bolts. Typically you end up with somewhere around the 4,000 mark, and here I'm at 4,200, so really good. Being overbolted isn't necessarily a bad thing. Each crate of bolts has a min and a max value, so... Alright, we're done with Kerwan. So, now we're on to Eudora, and Eudora is pretty known as being the shortest planet in all of these categories. It's funny, is even in this category, it's, you know, not even a minute long. So this is the trick here called slope intercept, or SI, as I'm going to call it throughout the rest of the run. And basically, you can hover into certain slopes, and there's a small window where you can actually high jump again off of it. He crouches for a little bit, and you can get a high jump out of it. So we just stack a bunch of those, and we can go straight over the wall there into the final area. And then the gold bolt conveniently is on a ledge right next to that area. So we get the coordinates, we get the gold bolt in just under a minute. Okay, so Blarg Station. There's 3 paths on this planet. We're going to take this first one now. And there's actually, later on, you're going to see, we actually clip straight to the end of the second one by going out of bounds. And the third path, we're actually going to come back later with a gadget that we're going to get later on that's going to be really useful in order to make getting that other bolt not only speedy, but also pretty consistent. So, something to note about here, actually, normally you break those, the barricades that are holding the crabs together. You break those in a certain order, but if you saw, my first bomb actually only went so far, and so they actually broke in reverse order, and it's way fast. And there's actually... It's not uncommon to accidentally hard lock your game, no big deal, if you break those too close together. So I was really worried there, but thankfully that didn't happen, and it was pretty fast. This is actually a really good first part of Blarg Station. So you see here, I'm going to clip out of bounds. And this is the warship. Normally you take a pod over here, there's a self-destruct sequence, and this door is locked that holds the info bot, but we can go straight through it and then just reload the planet. It takes us right back to our ship. It's really convenient. Especially because the area that we clip out from is also right next to where the gold bolt is. Now we just get to leave. So next up we have Rilgar. Rilgar is one of the more technically demanding planets in the run. So if you've never seen it, this might look a little funny at first glance. So what I was trying to do there was a trick called cineflips. If you do those slowly enough, you can actually get straight up to the end area, but I didn't make it. So we can actually clip out of bounds here and access the elevator at the end of the path that's going to take us up to that area. A little slower, but it's not too big of a deal. And with the cineflips themselves, it's pretty much certain surfaces in this game are designed weird. The game thinks you're constantly on the ground, and so you're able to, in this case, chain side flips back and forth in order to get a bunch of height together, but unfortunately did not have enough height to make it all the way up top here. So we're still technically out of bounds at this point. I'm going to be chaining a bunch of mid-airs together in order to land in this area down here and grab a gold bolt. And we're actually going to use these crates here in order to go back out the way that we came. By going back up top here and then death abusing over here, and that just takes us right back to this area, which is underneath where we were above. We're going to do some more SIs here and access an entirely other part of the map. This is actually the hoverboard track you see here once it loads in, but we're not going to be racing on it. We're going to clip out of bounds here and land on another gold bolt there. So missing cineflips is about 20 seconds, so that's kind of a big deal, but the rest of this, pretty smooth. And then we actually are stuck in that corridor there where the bolt was, so we're just going to reload, and again, it just puts us right back to our ship. Okay, so I mentioned cineflips earlier. We're going to do a pretty similar trick here on Umbris. In fact, this entire planet kind of revolves around this trick. These are called infinite long jumps, and so you're going to see here. These are same sort of concept, but they are chaining long jumps into side flips. And so they have pretty precise timing, but they take lots of practice, but they are... If you've never tried them, I highly recommend giving them a shot, because they are so much fun. I've wasted hours just practicing. And there I actually dropped into the mud and pulled my stuff out with the swing shot, and that activates a trick called Ghost Ratchet. And so pretty much the game thinks I'm dead, and so a lot of these walls don't have, or not a lot, all of these walls don't have collision. Getting all tied up here. Jeez. So we can skip right through the walls that are locking both gold bolt areas off. And from here, on this last little ledge here, we can actually go straight into the boss arena and actually go straight past the boss through this other locked door. We're going to grab the info bot, and again, depth abuse, go right back to the ship. Those are two very technical planets. Two of the more challenging planets in the run. This next planet, Battalia, is also pretty challenging, but it's mostly just a lot of small things that you have to hit in a row, and it's kind of like if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing tends to... The pacing just seems to go wrong, so... We're going to be grabbing a bunch of bolts here. We have a 2,000 bolt stipulation at the end of the planet, so we're going to be spending the majority of the planet collecting some bolts here and there. So I get my chain eaten there, which, you know, happens sometimes. Sometimes you fumble inputs. Battalia in particular is notorious for having a bunch of lag, and again, mid-airs, pretty precise timing. And so being a tiny bit off can kill your chain. You probably can see a little bit of it there. So that's all the gold bolts on this planet. Again, we're just going to be collecting a bunch of bullets. I'm trying to look for somewhere around 1,1500. And I think I'm going to be a little short of it. There's a chain you can do there. You can actually get all the way up top here if you glide up a little bit, but that's fine. That backup doesn't lose that much time anyway. So I'm going to kill a couple extra guys down here to get some extra bolts. And I think I'm going to have... Yeah, I have over 1,700 now, so that's really good. That definitely makes up for the bad bolts that I had earlier. So, interesting thing to note, on Blarg Station, we actually didn't go to the, like, full end of that path. There's actually a boss fight in there, and then you buy the grind boots. I'm gonna do a bunch of SIs here up this mountain, and this is really precise. There's like 11 of these that you have to hit, and there's very specific spots that you have to land in order to complete this sequence here. But the grind boots normally cost 2,000, and I already talked about being behind on bolts anyway. It's... Bolt routing in this category is pretty tight, so it's actually faster to just skip the grind boots altogether. And you actually are supposed to grind up this rail, but by doing Battalia SI and then gliding up this rail, we're able to skip the grind boots entirely. And there I almost slip off. Thankfully, I was able to save that by turning my camera and hyper striking, and the top part of my wrench collided with it and pulled me back up. I've definitely lost a fair share of runs to that. It happens. Alright. So this is a very interesting next planet. This is the only time in the run that we're going to play as Clank. And there's typically like 7 minutes worth of Clank sections and dealing with gadgebots and mazes, and it's a mess. So a skip was found for this at a point, but it was pretty precise, and the setup that I'm doing now was found by a runner named Sippy, I believe in 2020, and it's truly been a godsend. It is way more consistent than anything that we had beforehand. And again, that skips like 7 minutes worth of Clank sections, so we just shoot straight up to the infobot, and then we get to leave. Even with messing it up the first time, this was still pretty fast. Alright, Gaspar. Gaspar is, in theory, a very easy planet if everything goes well. And, you know, sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. So we've got some more SIs here. This one is pretty lenient. As long as you are around where the spots are, it's pretty hard to mess that one up. We're going to grab the pilot's helmet here and grab some more bolts. And then we have 2 gold bolts to get on this planet. An interesting thing to note is I'm actually out of bombs. That almost never happens. And then we have to hit 2 really good mid-airs here. And that looks beautiful. And we're going to go flying all the way over into this final area here. And the bolt is just on the other side. And when we do that, we're actually checkpointing here, so it's faster just to reload. And again, it puts us right back to our ship. It's kind of another reoccurring thing with this category in this game in general, that we want to end up usually as close to the ship as we can after we're done doing what we need to do. And that made it put me in a really odd direction, so we have this other sequence of SIs here, and this one is a little finicky sometimes. Sometimes you can slip off and then you go straight into the mud, and it's a mess. So I'm going to grab all the bombs that are on here. That's really important for the next planet. You see I'm at 39 of 40, so pretty much full ammo. This is probably the longest planet in the run. One of them. There's one more that is just slightly longer. But it's pretty much one giant escort mission. We're gonna escort the guy. That's his name, trust me. That guy to you can see it off in the distance there, on the other side of that island that I was just looking at with the big tower. There's a jet fighter in there that he's gonna help us pilot. Well, he's pretty much just gonna tell us to open the door. But we have to clear out all these fish. And by standing on top of the windshield, it's actually a pretty safe spot. And I'm actually killing these fish in a certain order. So if you wrench swing 3 of them and then bomb 5 of them, you can actually get a bunch of bolts that way. So I got probably somewhere around like 300 or 400 by doing that, maybe even more. And then over here, we have another sequence of SIs. This one's also a little finicky, but it's not too bad. And the gold bolt's just sitting over here. And thankfully, this one's not too far out of the way. Camera tried to fight me there a little bit. That's another thing that happens in this game sometimes. So we're just going to grab the rest of the fish here on this island. And there's the guy. Just going to grab some last-minute bolts while he's making his way over to the boat. And again, by breaking these in a certain, or by killing the fish in a certain way, you can see we're gonna get a ton of bolts from it. Coming up in a few planets, we have one 2,000 bolt purchase as well as one 1,000 bolt purchase. And actually, at the end of this planet, we have a 2,000 bolt purchase. So, a lot of things to keep in mind. Right here, I'm at around 3,100, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna hopefully get a bunch more on this last island here. And sometimes these fish kind of jump in different directions. We do typically want them to kind of cluster together, and that way, you know, that's less bombs that we have to use. We don't actually kill that many enemies in this run. In fact, this planet is probably 90 to 95% of all the enemies that we kill in the whole run. But and that's a cool thing you can do there. You can actually clip through that wall if you line that up in a certain way. Just saves a couple seconds because you can buy the thruster pack early. I believe this fight went okay. Lots of health. So those little small little saucers. Sometimes they drop you missiles, sometimes they drop you health, and usually we don't really take that much damage, if any at all. So we really do just want to stock up on missiles. And so I had one guy, unfortunately, slip away from me. And again, sometimes that happens. Not too bad overall. So this is Orxon 2, and this is a pretty technical planet as well. So some more SIs here. This is actually a gadget that you're supposed to get as Clank. We're just going to backtrack for it. We're going to use it in a couple spots. And then we are out of bounds again. We're going to grab this gold bolt behind the wall here. And then Death Abuse. And now begins the bulk of the planet. So I'm going to do a trick here called a tiptoe. And it looks like I'm actually going to do another one, because I didn't ledge grab off the first one. And the crabs were brutal there, and the bombs were not cooperating, unfortunately. But you'll see them again a couple times later. But pretty much as long as you're holding... I forgot that happened this run. Wow. I don't know what that was. I've never seen that before. But by holding the analog stick neutral and then just mashing X, you can actually jump off of those surfaces that normally have a one hit kill plane. Not all, just certain surfaces. And so we're going to get out of bounds once again and do a midair chain across this gap here in order to grab one final gold bolt. And again, these you have to have really good spacing on. And those were beautiful. You know, minus the one that missed, but that's okay. That happens. Okay, so this is one of the more variable planets throughout pretty much every category in Ratchet 1. This is Hoven, and this planet is going to start off with another infinite long jump. There's a turret at the top of the planet, and basically... Well, actually, as you saw there, I messed it up, and at this point I'm on pretty good pace, so I decided to do the backup method here. These are called infinite side flips. Same sort of thing. They're just a little bit slower, but they're way more consistent. But pretty much this turret here, the game doesn't check your Y coordinate, so as long as you're directly underneath it, the game will just up warp you. So ideally, you can infinite long jump across the gap there and go right underneath it. But the actual ledge that you're supposed to infinite long jump off of is covered in ice, so it's really hard to see where you are. I've kind of got a feel for it, but sometimes that can only get you so far. So I just opted not to go for it. This fight as well, not the best, but not the worst, especially considering that I already had a death at this point. So there's more infinite long jumps there. I think I try and go for some tiptoes here, but I don't know if I hit them or not. Yeah, nah, I did. You can tiptoe off very specific spots of that little umbrella-shaped platform there. But even if you mess it up, it's not that hard. You just wall bounce off the moving platform. And that's not too slow. So we've got one final gold bolt in here, and this is normally a puzzle that you use a gadget called the Hydro Displacer, and it basically, as its name suggests, it displaces water. We can actually access this boat with some clever movement. And there's no need to raise the water up. And there's a tiny gap there that we can jump out of, and once again, death abuse, and end up right back at the ship. Okay, so next up is Gemlick, and this is one of my more favorite planets in the run. It's pretty short, but it's really cool, in my opinion. This is a very long and winding planet with many just weaving pathways and so many areas to explore. And we're pretty much just gonna go out of bounds and just beeline it straight to the end of it. And I had so much speed that I actually bumped against the invisible wall. So this is actually a boss area. We're typically supposed to use that jet fighter in there in order to defeat this boss, but we can actually just exit. And here I grabbed some extra bolts just for safety because I was a little low. And pretty much as long as you're over on this runway here, the game just assumes that you've beaten the boss. Otherwise, why would you be over here? And we're going to do a chain there and tiptoe off of this part that you normally slide off of and go into a whole other area and grab a gold bolt. That bolt is really cool and really unique. Definitely one of my favorite parts of the whole run. Getting a good Gemlick always is a good feeling. Okay, so this is the longest planet in the run. And we have lots to do. So the first thing we're going to do is collect some more bolts. At this point, a lot of the crates that we're going to break are going to give us a lot. So we don't have to be too cautious about like going out of our way to get bolts. And there's only, like I said, there's a 1,000 bolt purchase coming up, a 2,000 bolt purchase coming up, both on this planet. A 500 bolt purchase coming up, and then one final 2,500 bolt purchase. So, a couple things left to buy, but it's not too bad. You see, I'm by the end of this, I'm already gonna have most of the ones on this planet covered. And this big stack here gives like 500 or something, so really nice. And what's funny is, for the most part, this sequence at the start of Oltanis is pretty much as intended. There is a faster, but way more dangerous way of getting the gadget at the end of this pathway called the PDA early, but it's probably the hardest trick in the entire run, and it saves I think like 35 seconds in this category, somewhere around there, if you get it first try, and it is pretty finicky. So, and there, unfortunately, I just kind of had to take the hit. It's faster to get hit than to stop and wait. And there I actually used that damage boost to redirect me into this first gold bolt. And unfortunately, you know, I took that hit, I took the hit from the ship right there, and I took the hit from earlier, so we were definitely risking death on this run, but, you know, sometimes you gotta do that. And now, the PDA is normally a gadget that allows you to purchase ammo pretty much whenever. But for the speedrun, it's really an invaluable tool. So you saw me use it there to do infinite jumps, which the name pretty much says it all. Here you're going to see PDA side flips. Same sort of thing, but we're doing side flips instead of jumps. Makes sense, right? Oh, and I forgot to mention, but we actually don't have Clank on this planet. There's a storm going on, there's lightning, Clank's a robot, so there's a whole thing in the story where he's like magnetic to the lightning, and so he can't stay out. It'd be really interesting to see this planet with Clank, though, for sure. So a bunch more PDA side flips there to get that gold bolt, and then this last gold bolt is kind of far out the way, unfortunately. But there's some cool out of bounds here. I'm a little far back here, so I have to do a couple extra infinite jumps, but that's not too big of a deal. And then one final swing shot to grab the last gold bolt. This is one of the planets with the most gold bolts on it. There's 4 on this planet. There's one other planet with 4 on it, but we'll get there. And now we're just going to make our way back to the ship. And now that we have the PDA, we're going to do a couple revisits. So first up is probably one of my favorite parts of the entire run. This is Novalis 2. So Novalis, if you remember, was the second planet in the run. But now we have Clank, we have both packs, we have the PDA. So we are immediately going to clip out of bounds here and swim into one of the secret areas. And here I'm actually going to let this bee bite me a couple times, just to death abuse back to the ship later. We already have the coordinates from this planet. We got them earlier on the first visit, so we're just going to go for bolts. So, unfortunately, the bee missed me there. That happens sometimes. And so now we're gonna make our way through the waterworks section. There I got stay canceled there. You saw he kind of grinded to a screeching halt. But there's just some really cool pack movement here. And combined with the PDA, it's pretty fast and pretty efficient. And so probably the coolest part of the run here is coming up. Or coolest part of the planet, I should say. Maybe the whole run, but I'm gonna use the PDA. You can stop yourself with the PDA, and you can chain a bunch of mid-airs together. And I'm actually gonna carry that all the way through across this section here. And unfortunately, I had kind of a bad angle coming out of it, so I didn't have the best speed. And I lost a little bit of height, so I had to make up for it. But you can carry your momentum all the way through that river slide. And then one last goal bowl here. And then we can clip out here in Death Abuse and right back to the ship. Alright, so then we're going to go back to Blarg. And there is a way to grab this goal bolt earlier. It's a little bit faster, but it's this method is way more consistent. Just gonna do some more infinite jumps. And the bolt is just sitting on a ledge over here. Not too bad. Alright, so on the core 2, this is another very technical planet. It kind of combines a lot of different things that we've seen throughout the run so far. So we've got some more infinite jumps here. There's a kind of like an invisible ledge that you can hit there. And it'll actually, you just kind of fall in place. It's really goofy. And the game actually gives you the fall timer afterwards, so it just puts you right back at the ship. And so it loses like 15 seconds. And I almost hit it there, but thankfully I did not. So we grab that bolt there. We're going to go back out of bounds. Here I'm going to activate Ghost Ratchet from underneath. I'm going to pack swap, and then really quickly before this guy shoots me, I'm going to try and ILJ across the slime here. And if you have a bunch of speed, you open the PDA and you hold X. You can do the glide here, and you see I keep all my speed. And so we just go soaring all the way to the back side of the map. And this is kind of cool. This is actually a giant Clank fight. This is the only one that we're going to see. There are 2 in the game. But, this, we need because we need the coordinates to Kalebo III, because there's some glow bolts on there. So, this fight's pretty consistent. One thing you'll notice, I'm actually looking downwards. That's because it's notoriously really laggy. And, definitely don't want that. But, these fights are always in set waves. And so, we've got all the big enemies out of the way, so now it's just these smaller helicopters. Just grabbing the last couple here. And that should be everyone. There's one guy hiding back there. Alright, so still have Ghost Ratchet, so we are just going to go through these walls here and actually lose a bunch of speed there. So I think I just end up dying here, right? Yeah. You can continue the chain if you have enough speed. It's a little bit faster, but dying there doesn't lose that much time. Okay, so this is my other favorite part of the entire run. This is Iridia, and if you know this game, Iridia, you saw we got it when we revisited Novalis. This is usually a really early planet, but coming back here so late and having all the packs and having the PDA, there's just so much cool movement. So here we do some PDA side flips, cut this gap, and enter the cave a little bit faster. Normally there's a rock you have to blow up, and then you enter it. You're going to see we're actually just going to go straight through the hollowed out rock that you're supposed to blow up. That's kind of funny. We use some ILJs here. There's again, the same mud that was on Umbris. We're going to spin it into some mid-airs here and cut into our second bolt. I love this planet because it really does just show how crazy the movement is on this planet. We're just so quickly going from one part of the map to the next. So there's some more infinite long jumps into PDA side flips, and you can get that bolt there. And now this last one's pretty tough. We're going to try and do some center flips here to get a bunch of height to get over the rock wall. And I kind of landed in a weird spot, but it's not too big a deal. I lose a bunch of speed, but that's fine. The area that we have to go to is right here anyway. So I'm going to hop over this mud, do some infinite side flips, and make it over a big wall there, and then clip into this final area to grab our last gold bolt. This is a really big map, and we covered pretty much the whole basis of it in a little over 2 minutes. It's really crazy. Okay, so for my money, this is probably the hardest planet in the entire run. Probably top 3, in my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree. It has probably the hardest bolt to get in the entire run, that's for sure. So we're going to clip out of bounds there. For some reason, the bottom of there is hollowed out. And we're going to do a chain across the runway here. I'm going to try and build up a bunch of speed and get to here, and you're going to see I'm going to turn back around and go underneath, clip out of bounds, and squeeze right through that gap there. And that's a very tight gap to make because you can clip out, you can clip to the left, you'll clip out, you can clip to the right, and you'll go into kind of like a locked room that you can't escape. There's a tiny bit of electricity that you see the water here is the zap water. There's a part of it that sticks out. You can hit it as you come in, and so that's usually a really scary bolt to get, but really, really good here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do another chain. We try and go over to the right side to grab our second bolt. And I accidentally fumble the chain there. I try and recover it here, but it's not good enough, unfortunately. So that's a little catastrophic, but it's not too big a deal. I'm gonna try and do a little baby chain here with some speedy A's and some pack swaps, and I get about halfway. Not too bad. Probably the best we can do with what we have at the moment. So some more infinite jumps here, and we're going to clip into the front part of the ship. and then take the teleporter over to the final ship. And you can clip through this wall in a weird way by doing that ground pound you see there. And then get this bolt. And then you see behind us, there's that last room here. We can actually kill this guy and then clip up through the top here and go straight into the last room. It's a little bit faster than going around. And you can actually preserve your momentum through that cutscene. It's pretty cool. Alright, 2 planets left. So, this is Kalebo III. This is a really short planet. There's no coordinates here. It's just 2 gold bolts, and they kind of are opposites of one another. You'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm going to start by doing a chain here. Going into some more PDA side flips. And then we're going to do a bunch of speedies here, trying to get a bunch of speed. And then chain all the way over here into this gold bolt here. So that was pretty smooth. We're going to do the same thing and go right to the other area. And then just take the other side. And same thing, just more speedy A's, trying to build up speed. And I accidentally goofed my chain there, but thankfully you can rebuild it here. It's not too bad. This planet really is just a mid-air precision check. So even with that miss chain, still pretty smooth. Alright, and now our last planet. So this planet is divided into 2 sections. So we have 3 gold bolts to get our last 3, and then we've got to go fight Drek. So the first thing we're going to do is actually buy the Pyrocitor, which is it's a flamethrower weapon. It's mostly used for clearing out small enemies, like you see the groups of frogs there. But on PAL PS3 specifically, when they ported the PS2 version over to PS3, they kind of goofed the Pyrocitor, and so it deals damage on every single frame as long as you're right up against an enemy's hitbox. So, being only 2,500 bolts, we can actually use it against Drek, and we can kill him in like a minute and a half or something. It's like a minute and a half to get there and kill him. The fight itself normally takes, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or so. You'll see. So I kind of goofed the first chain to get that first bolt, but that's, you know, the on pace nerves. And here I have a pretty rough chain, but I try and save it with pulling out the thruster pack here. Little rough, but all right. Then one final bolt. I did get Ghost Ratchet earlier, which is why I've been going through a lot of these walls. And then our final bolt. So we're going to grab Ghost Ratchet again. One final ILJ sequence here. And we're going to cut this corner in a way that we actually don't spawn Drek there. And by not spawning him there, when we go to the final arena, he's already going to have 3 chunks of his health bar taken away. So from here, it's just going to be infinite jumping to the arena. And like I said, with the Pyrociter, Drek is usually a pretty easy fight. But speaking personally, I've had quite the streak of bad RNG or just weird things happening. But I believe this fight goes pretty smooth. So I get missiles here. He has a bunch of different attack patterns. And missiles are not the best thing to get, but that's okay. He gives me bomb here, which is great. Bomb, he tends to slow down. It's really easy to get right up in his face. He gave me bomb again. Really, really good. And I believe I cut him on this corner here. And that is Ratchet and Clank all go bolts. Hope you guys enjoyed the run, the commentary, and let me know if I should do more of these. All right. Take care, everybody.